a 62% duty on bone-in chicken, which is the bit that moves at the highest volume.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter which other market you go into, you are never, ever going to be able to sell behind a 62% tariff wall. And so when duties get particularly high, it removes the incentive to export, because you're always better off, again, locking in that protection. You've got to incur all of these costs to get into a new market. And for a relatively modest cost, you could just keep paying lobbyists to keep your protection. So your risk on spending money to lobby for protection is very low. It's, you're almost guaranteed to get it. Your risk on entering a new market is really high, and particularly for something like chicken, where you've got all these animal health and sanitary rules you need to comply with. So from the perspective of a chicken producer, you would always want to sell more locally. And then the second part of your issue is that we've got a very weird way of producing chicken in South Africa, which is a legacy of the prior rules around brining chicken. So the brining is not allowed in most countries. So the brining has an immediate 15% advantage for you, because something like 99% or 98% of the brine is water. So the very first thing you get to do is you get to sell the water at the price of chicken. And you can't do that in most markets. So not only do you have this cost to incur to get into other markets, you also have to sell a product into that market where you can't simply export the water anymore. You very quickly hit a point where it is no longer actually financially attractive to move into new markets. So no matter what they promise, I can't see why logically they would want to do it. Does that make sense?
But it's sort of, at the same time, it contradicts the PMP, the exports ambitions of the PMP.
But that's rubbish. I mean, that's just nonsense. That is just telling the minister what he needs to hear so that he'll sign off and give you the protection. Like, I don't think there's ever any real intention by the big guys to export. Where people, or at least, into markets that may pose a challenge, where you may have people that have an appetite are the smaller producers. Because remember, the local market is completely dominated by Astral and RCL. So if you're a smaller producer, you may actually find exporting to be quite appealing, because you're going to find it difficult to compete locally with those big guys. So the smaller producers might actually find exporting to be more appealing, because your problem is not just imports. I mean, imports are quite a small part of the local market. If you're a small producer, your much bigger problem is Astral and RCL, which are going to lock you out of the big contracts.